Today is Thursday, September 13th, 2012 at 7 p.m. in the Library Activity Room at the Flint Memorial Library in North Reading, Massachusetts. We have an evening with Laura Harrington, author of coming-of-age novel, Alice Bliss, a remarkably sensitive first novel full of splendid characterizations about a family left behind when a man goes off to war and a teenager is left trying to cope. Alice Bliss has been chosen as the must-read book of 2012 by the Massachusetts Library Association and the Massachusetts Center for the Book.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Flint Memorial Library. We have a very special guest with us tonight. Her name is Laura Harrington. She's an award-winning playwright from Massachusetts. She's been writing plays for about 25 years and has recently published her first novel called Alice Bliss, which was published in 2011 and has been a choice for high school readers and also has been very popular. People chose it as a people pick, and Entertainment Weekly also called it one of the best books of the summer, and it was selected as part of Barnes & Noble's Discover Great Writers program. So without further ado, here is Laura Harrington.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Danielle, and a special thank you to Helena for inviting me to the Flint Memorial Library. I had the fun of speed dating with Helena, and in March, was it? The Massachusetts Library Association chooses a number of books every year that they call must-read books for 2012 in the categories of adult fiction, nonfiction, children's literature, and poetry, and they were kind enough to choose Alice Bliss. And at their conference, they invited a number of writers to come and ask us to speed date with librarians on the way. And I thought, well, that sounds like so much fun. How could I possibly miss going to Worcester to speed date with librarians? And I remember when Sharon invited me, I was like, yes, you can tell I'm a complete dork. This sounds like the best invitation I've had all year. And they had a lot more people than they expected. We were in one of those great big conference rooms with circular tables that had people sitting around them 2 deep. And the authors moved from table to table and had 5 minutes to talk about their book. So by table number, and it's interesting, I was like, whoa, I've never speed dated, and I wonder if anyone else has had this experience. By table number 3, you can't remember what you said, and you'll pause mid-sentence because you're all excited and talking, and think, did I already tell you that? Was that the last table? But it allowed me to meet some wonderful librarians and allowed a number of wonderful librarians to meet Alice Bliss. And I have to say that libraries and librarians have been an unbelievable support to this book, for which I am tremendously grateful. I like to say that librarians are the hub of the universe. For a writer, they connect you to the community, they connect you to teachers, they connect you, of course, to readers, and they connect you to book clubs. And it's an amazing thing for a writer. Tonight, I'd like to tell you the story of how I came to write this book, and then a little bit about why I wrote the book, then do a brief reading so you can get a flavor of the book and the kind of writing that I do, and then leave some time, of course, for some questions and answers. I write plays and musicals and operas and the occasional radio play. And I've been doing this for 25 years, and in 2008, I was given an amazing award, which is called the Clavan Award for Most Promising Lyricist in American Musical Theater. And first I thought, whoa, pretty good to still be most promising when I'm over 40. And you think you don't know who Edward Clavan is, but of course you do. He is the lyricist for A Chorus Line, and he made a fortune and decided that the foundation he wanted to set up was to support the writers of musical theaters, not the composers, but the writers. He thought the composers can always get a job playing in a band, being musical directors, and at the very least they can go out onto the street corner with their instrument and play and get people to throw some money at them. But what in the world are writers supposed to do? So he decided he would support writers. And it's the most significant award in my field, so it was a tremendous affirmation for my musical theater work, as well as a true gift, because it was enough money to allow me to write for 2 years without worrying about my income. And when they had this lovely party at ASCAP in New York at Lincoln Center and handed me the first check, they give it to you in 2 checks. I think they're afraid that if they give it to you all at once, you're going to do something stupid. And I had this odd sensation. I thought, my first reaction is not, yippee, I can't wait to write my next musical. And as I reflected on that a little bit on my train ride home back to Massachusetts, I realized, what does that mean? And what is it that I really want to do? Because this is a gift no one has ever given me before. And it's likely I'm not going to get another gift like this. So how do I want to use this? And I realized that what I most wanted to do was reconnect to the creative process by being a beginner again. And here's how I relate to all the new writers in the room, because I thought the way to connect to the love of writing again, to take it away from the marketplace, to take it away from the highs and lows of reviews and all the rest of it, is to try something you've never done, and to be a beginner and not know what you're doing and try to find your way. And so that's how I came to write this book. And I have no idea if I could write a book, if I had a story that would turn into a book, if I could figure out how to write a book. So it was extremely fun and unsettling, and also kind of eerie to drop out of a career I had spent 25 years working my tail off to make a great career, to kind of just drop out for a little while and try something new. And so I feel very, very lucky and very grateful that Alice Bliss has taken me on the journey that she has, because it's been a bit of a little fairy tale with this book. But then there's a deeper story here, which is the why of this story. And Alice Bliss, if you don't already know, is about a 15-year-old girl whose father is in the reserves and is deployed to Iraq. And the book tells the story of what life is like for the families and the children who are left behind. And I wanted to write this book because I've spent much of my career writing about war in one way or another. My dad was a World War II veteran, and both my brothers enlisted in 1966. Only one of them went to Vietnam. They both survived, but changed. And I've been trying to understand that my whole life. And I've been trying to understand, I'm especially fascinated by the American Civil War, and I've written 2 plays about that. I've been trying to understand how one day you and I are neighbors, and that's Monday, and on Tuesday we're going to kill each other. And I can't understand it. So it's one of these conundrums that keeps me very, very interested. And I found in writing about war in my theater work that, there's only so much war that people really want to hear about. So the reason that Alice Bliss seems to really work as a book, and one of the things I was trying to do, was create a story that's a classic coming-of-age story. 15-year-old kid growing up, dealing with what every 15-year-old kid does, where the deeper story is about what families are coping with in terms of the war. So you could read this book as a coming-of-age story, and you could read this book as a potent plea for peace. It's kind of up to you. But that's what the larger context of the book is for me, and what inspired me to write it. It also came from a short 30-minute one-woman musical. That was the first time I met the character of Alice Bliss, called Alice Unwrapped. And this was commissioned and performed in New York at the Zipper Factory, which is as off-Broadway as you can possibly get. No one had ever done short one-woman musicals. We have lots of one-woman plays, but one-woman musicals are something special. And it's a very tricky form, and just to give you an idea, a 30-minute musical has a script that's 7 pages long. The music theater form is extremely, extremely compressed and condensed. And our Alice was Jennifer Damiano. If there are any music theater lovers in the room, she's currently Mary Jane in Spider-Man. And while she was with us, she was taking her SATs and turning 17 on opening night. And in the musical, we meet Alice, and she has kind of she's wearing homemade armor. She's got a bicycle helmet on, and she's bought some combat boots, and she's made herself a vest out of Kevlar and duct tape. And this is how she's both holding herself together and imagining what her dad is wearing and what's keeping him safe. And we just spend an afternoon with her as she deals with this and with her little sister. And I realized at the time that it was such a powerful, she was such an interesting character, and it was such a powerful moment that there was a whole lot more to this story. So that was in the back of my mind when I thought, maybe I could sit down and write a book. So let me give you a little flavor of what this book is like. I'm going to introduce you to the character of Henry and to Alice, and this is one of my favorite scenes. And if you have time and you feel like it, you can meet another character too. Alice and Henry catch the bus downtown after school, way downtown, to Pearl Street, to the cool vintage clothing store that specializes in tuxedos. They have $20 to outfit Henry for the dance and another $20 for Alice. Maybe. For Alice, this is all a big maybe. The mothers wanted to take them to the mall. That was a definite no. Unbeknownst to Alice, Henry also has another $50 in his pocket, given to him by his mother. Henry and his mother have discussed the options. Henry and his mother have outlined a basic game plan. Henry actually knows what he is looking for. Sitting next to Alice on the city bus, however, Henry feels lost. It's a cold, comfortless day that could belong to any month from October to May. Henry follows Alice's lead and pulls out his history homework, but he can't read. Reading in cars and buses makes him sick. He sneaks a look at her. She appears to actually be reading about the Continental Congress. She does not sense him looking at her and turn around and turn toward him and begin to talk like she usually does. They have not discussed the kiss or the non-kiss. In fact, they haven't really talked at all. They are both pretending that nothing happened, that everything is the same. But of course, nothing is the same. Riding the bus isn't the same. Sitting side by side so their legs almost touch is not the same. Getting thrown against Alice as the bus makes the long curve up on the I-95 is not the same. Not talking is not the same. Not talking and joking and laughing. Not having to think so much about every single thing it gives you brain cramp is not the same. It is all so overwhelming that Henry falls asleep. Right there on the noisy downtown bus, falls sound asleep until Alice wakes him up at their stop at Jane Street on Downtown Crossing. They walk the 2 long, dreary blocks to Pearl Street in total silence. Maybe this was a mistake, Henry is thinking. Maybe this whole thing is one big, terrible mistake. Maybe Alice hates him now, and maybe he's mad at Alice for ruining everything, and maybe they should just go home. But there's Alice throwing open the grimy door and striding inside Rerun like she owns the place. There are millions of tuxedos at Rerun, crammed into a long, narrow, dusty storefront on a street that has seen better days. Rerun is flanked on either side by empty stores. The middle-aged, pot-bellied, Hawaiian shirt-wearing guy behind the counter is eyeing them as if they are hardened shoplifters out to rob him blind. Alice starts sneezing. They don't even know what size to look for. Henry walks up to the counter. Hi. Yep. I need a suit or a tuxedo. For a dance. Look around. I don't know what size. The guy whips out a tape measure. My name's Henry. Measuring Henry's waist. What's your name? Measuring Henry's chest. Roger. Measuring Henry's inseam. Nice to meet you, Roger. The smaller sizes are on the left upper rack. What size am I? you're the size that's going to need alterations. Which is, there might be a couple of 34s in there. You got anything for my friend? A tuxedo? Hey, Alice, you want a tuxedo? Maybe, Alice answers from the other side of a rack. I was thinking more like a dress, Henry says, and then quietly to Roger, you know that actress in the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's? Audrey Hepburn? A dress like she wore. That's a she, bud. And maybe a hat. Does the girl know? No. I ask the girl. That's my mom's favorite movie. Roger gives him a look. Do you have anything? Henry asks. I might. Is it in a vault or something? Roger calls to Alice. What size are you? I don't know, small. That's a start. He walks to the racks of tuxedos, grabs 4 of them, hangs them in a fitting room wallpapered in leopard print, and disappears through a back door. Am I supposed to try those on? Yep. Alice plops into a lime green swivel chair to wait. Henry closes the curtain. I think you should look at some pearls. What? Some long strings of pearls. What are you talking about? Are there hats? Have you seen any hats? Henry, have you lost your mind? He steps out of the fitting room. This one's too big. Henry is drowning in his tuxedo. The sleeves reach his knees. He moves stilts toward the pants. Try the next one. Look at the pearls. What pearls? In the glass case. What do I want with pearls? Alice, could you just... Henry steps back into the fitting room as Roger appears with half a dozen little black dresses draped over his arm. He hangs them one by one across the back wall of a fitting room papered in faded peppermint stripes. I think this is what he was looking for, Roger says. Those are for me? I'll find you some pearls. Henry? Just try them on, just for fun, Henry says from behind the curtain. Alice finds herself in the pink room, the peeling wallpaper, taking off her backpack and her clothes and carefully pulling the first dress over her head. There is no mirror inside the fitting room, so she's going to have to step outside to see what it looks like. She hesitates. This could be really embarrassing. It seems like it fits. She can still breathe after she zips the zipper. At least it's not long, and at least it's not full of ruffles and bows, and it definitely doesn't look like anything her mother would pick out for her. It's straight and close-fitting, but not tight, and the skirt hits just below the knee. Maybe she's going to look like a 50-year-old widow in this dress. She steps outside the fitting room. She still has her socks on, but even so, she can see that it's a beautiful dress. And even though she's mostly all covered up, it's a sexy dress. It hugs her body, and her waist looks tiny, and it shows off her shoulders and her long neck. What size shoe you wear? Roger asks. 7.5. He picks up a pair of red high heels. She shakes her head. Do you have any flats? He hands her a pair of black pointy-toed flats. She pulls up her socks and slips into them. Henry steps out of his fitting room in a jacket that actually fits, and pants that are kind of tight, but in a good way. Even just wearing a t-shirt under the jacket, Henry looks good. But Henry is not looking in the mirror. Henry is looking at Alice. What? She laughs. Roger reappears with an impossibly long string of pearls that he doubles around her neck, and several hairpins. Put your hair up, he instructs, handing her the pins. Alice lifts her hair off the nape of her neck. Roger glances at Henry, raises an eyebrow. Here it is, the simplest gesture in the world. A girl lifts her hair off the nape of her neck, and a boy and an old man catch their collective breath. There, she says, and turns to them. She smooths the front of the dress, looking down at her hands, at her bitten fingernails, at her big feet and the pointy-toed shoes. This is a woman's dress, she thinks, a young woman's dress. It is not a girl's dress. It is solidly on the other side of the line outside of girlhood. It is a dress that says something big in a very quiet way. It is a dress that is talking to Alice right now, a dress that is making her feel possibilities never before considered. The possibility of perfume and pretty and dancing and boys. This dress is who she might be, only more so. When she looks up, they are both smiling at her. You need a shirt, Roger says to Henry and hustles off to find him one. Henry almost can't bear looking at Alice. There's something happening in his stomach that could be the flu or could be just plain pure misery and longing. Do you like it? He nods his head and closes his eyes to try to contain the intensity of what he is feeling. He closes his eyes and imagines holding Alice on the dance floor, his hands resting on the small of her back. He imagines hearing Duke Ellington and a tenor sax and knowing the tune and knowing the words and knowing the steps and holding Alice in his arms, Alice in that dress, Alice with that music. Henry? He opens his eyes to find Alice grinning at him. What? This could be fun. Thank you. I think we have time that I could read you another short section if you'd like, but I'm not pushing this on you. Okay, I think I should read you a bit about planting the garden. The next thing you know, Graham and Uncle Eddie are on their way home. Ellie's in the bathtub. Ellie is her younger sister. Talking a mile a minute to Mom, who is perched on the edge of the tub, and Alice is out the door. In the workshop, she puts on her dad's jacket, work gloves, and a hat. She slips into her rubber boots, then gathers what she needs. A hoe, string, stakes, seeds, the Coleman lantern, and finally, she is in the garden. She's been trying to get in the garden all day. She goes back into the workshop to get the stool for the lantern so that elevated it can shed more usable light. In the cold, drizzling rain, in the dark, she stakes her rows one by one. Leaf lettuce, red and green, spinach, beets, radishes, peas, carrots. She hears her dad's voice reminding her to alternate the red and green lettuce. They look so nice like that. Short rows, Alice, stagger the planting over a couple of weeks. She stops for a minute to listen to the wind in the branches and the steady drip of the rain, and then bends to work with the hoe, making her furrows, not too deep. The soil is wet and heavy, but she takes her time just the way her dad does, and her rows are true. She has to take her gloves off to handle the seed packets and the seeds. Her hands are freezing as she tears open the first seed packet. Alice? It's her mom, in a raincoat and rain boots and holding an umbrella. Half an hour, I'll be done. Can I help? Not with that stupid umbrella. Angie closes the umbrella, pulls a hat out of her pocket, and waits for Alice to tell her what to do. Dad and I work in from the outside so we don't get in each other's way. Okay. Can you see the last row? Beets. She hands her a seed packet. Be patient. Don't overseed. Just one row? I'll see how you do and then decide if you get to do another one. They work in silence, except for the slight hiss of the Coleman lantern and the steady drip of the rain. It's raining down my neck, Angie complains. You'll live, Alice says. Alice is down on her hands and knees, carefully mounding soil over the seeds. Sweetie, I'm not really dressed for kneeling in the dirt. I'll do it. You just do the seeds. Angie straightens up from the row of beets. Good enough? Alice checks out her mother's work as well as she can, given the limited light. I guess I'll have to trust you on this one. What's next? Alice hands her a packet of carrot seeds. How do you keep your hands from freezing off? You don't. Alice finishes the spinach and the radishes and the peas in the time it takes Angie to finish the row of carrots, and then she's on her knees, mounding the soil over the seeds. She is rewarded with her dad's voice again. Tamp it down a bit, not too tight. The soil is cold and wet, and she is thinking of the days to come, the sunny days to come, when she will plant peppers and tomatoes and beans and corn and squash, and the soil will be warm in her hands. She can hear her dad rattling off his favorite varieties of tomatoes: Early Girl, Brandywine, Big Rainbow, Mr. Stripey, Nebraska Wedding. She'll plant them all. Is that it? Angie wants to know. That's it. Okay, let's get you into the bathtub. I'm going to stay out here for a bit, Mom. Alice. Alice looks at her mom. She notices that her hair is plastered to her neck. Then she looks out over the mass of the garden. Sometimes I can hear him, she says, not like in a crazy way or anything. I can hear the things he said to me, how to do things and stuff. It's really cold, honey. We'd always just sit here for a few minutes when we finished planting. Alice picks up the lantern and wipes the rain off the stool for her mom. Angie hesitates and then sits. Alice sets the lantern down and kneels in the dirt. She pulls a Snickers bar out of the jacket pocket, unwraps it, hands half to her mom. Snickers? Dad's favorite. Really? You didn't know that? Nope. They eat the Snickers. Normally, when Dad and I would be doing this, the sun would be shining and some birds would be singing, and I know, and you just sort of feel things beginning and things continuing the way some things get to continue, because it's the same things that are beginning every spring, and it's like so full of hope, to put those seeds in the ground every year. Alice hasn't said this many words in a row to her mother in a long time. She wonders if it's the dark that is letting her talk like this, or the fact that Angie has entered Alice's world for a change. Can you smell that smell? Angie sniffs, skeptical and dubious that there could be something out here she would actually like to smell, because while she may like big animals and barns and farmers' wives, she does not in any way, shape, or form like dirt. Which smell? All of them. Honey, the garden isn't really... Ellie told me a new word today, petrichor, the loamy smell that rises from the ground after rain. Isn't it cool that there's a word for that? Ellie and her dictionary. It's there, just like she said. It's there. Water is now dripping from Angie's neck, down Angie's back, and she is wishing she could enter into the spirit of all of this with Alice a bit more fully, that she could just inhale petrichor like a really good sport, but just as fervently she is wishing she could get inside her nice dry house. So, is that enough communing with nature for one night? Alice laughs. You go in. I'll put the tools away. Angie picks up her umbrella, heads back to the house. She's washing her hands at the kitchen sink, and looks up to see that Alice is still in the garden, still kneeling in the dirt. The light from the lantern barely illuminates her. Angie turns out the kitchen light and returns to the window, thinking she might be able to see a little better. What is she waiting for? Her father's voice? A miracle? Is she praying? Angie realizes she has no idea what Alice is thinking, and she suddenly sees just how hard it is to know anyone, ever. But is there anything more difficult than trying to know your adolescent daughter? No one warned her that you can go from feeling like a really good mother to a really clueless and crappy mother the minute your daughter turns 12. Or was it 11? Alice stands and stretches and picks up the lantern to walk the 6 rows, making sure everything is as it should be, just the way her dad does it. Alice is taller, Angie realizes. She suddenly looks more like Matt than ever. She has even started to move with Matt's easy grace and confidence. Angie watches her, sees her care and her competence and the threads that connect her to Matt. Each string stretched tight over each row, each careful furrow, each seed in the dark earth weaving a web of connection and memory. Alice, satisfied, puts the hoe over one shoulder, picks up the stool and the lantern, and heads to the workshop. Angie calls out the back door. I'm drawing you a hot bath. 5 minutes, Mom. I have to clean the tools. Just like Matt, meticulous with his tools. In the last 30 minutes, Angie has suddenly found herself face to face with a whole slew of things that Matt has taught Alice. Angie wonders what she has taught her daughter and feels like that list is woefully short. In this moment, she cannot think of one truly valuable thing to put on that list. How to do laundry? Fry an egg? Not in the same league. How in the world is she going to fill in for Matt if he doesn't come home? Not that anyone could ever fill Matt's shoes, but for Alice, she gets a sudden and dizzying glimpse into the size of how much she misses him. If Matt doesn't come home, no, she can't go there. She can't think that. He will return. She has to believe this. She has to. Alice walks in the back door, soaking wet and muddy, her dark hair dripping down her back. Come here. She visibly recoils. Mom, I'm a mess. I don't care. And Angie opens her arms. She opens her arms to her daughter, hoping beyond hope that Alice won't turn away. There's a long moment before Alice can bring herself to walk into them, and when she does, she's stiff and cold and uncertain. But for once, Angie is not worrying about getting wet or dirty or what she has to do next. For once, Angie just holds on until she can feel Alice melt into her, until she can feel Alice's head sink onto her shoulder, until she can feel Alice's arms go around her. I've missed you, she says into Alice's damp hair. Thank you. I'd love to take your questions.
You got my tear ducts.
I should have a Kleenex. I know. Thank you. That's lovely. I appreciate that.
I have one minor question.
Yes.
It's such a beautiful book. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, you read it?
Yeah.
Yes! How many people here want to read my book? Oh my God! I would be so careful about reading later in the book.
Well, this is a minor question, not related to all the deep emotional questions that are there. But I wondered, the little sister Ellie's love of words, and why you put that in, where do you want to take the reader to?
I love the writer Anne Fadiman. And Anne was a word kook when she was a child. And I was reading her book, Ex Libris, which is about her love of words and libraries and books, and learned that she was a collector of large words. And while I was working on the book, I don't know if you remember this, there was a guy who read the OED and wrote a book about it. And I found that so remarkable and amazing, and I heard a great interview with him, and I thought, that's just so cool. And I wanted to create a child, because children are we don't realize how smart they are. I wanted to create a child who, so much of television and movies and books as well, will have a little 8-year-old not have any emotional needs and say all the things that nobody else can say, and they're not real children to me. So I wanted to create a child who was very quirky, because she doesn't get a lot of stage time, so she needs to make a big impression. And I wanted to give her something that connected her to her dad, and also let us know just how unbelievably smart she is. Ellie was always like this genius from the beginning. She did in the musical, she goes to genius school in New York City. I just, there's something about Ellie that just got to me that way, and the way that I think I was also trying to express all the different ways that people cope with stress and pain. And we get very intellectual about it. The idea that a little kid is the one who's going to the intellectual route to find a way to use her mind to distract herself was interesting to me, because it's not what's expected. But I thought it reflected that she needed something to connect her and to give her something to do, and that she felt special about, and also could share with her dad. Yes, she finds his dictionary and reads it. Yes.
You just said Ellie didn't get a lot of stage time. Now.
Sounds like a playwright, doesn't it?
Yes. I want to know what carried over from playwriting into you as a novelist.
A great deal, I have to say. You all know there's a lot of dialogue in the book, and whenever I was kind of thinking, what happens next? I don't know what to do. I would just say to myself, get them talking, and you'll find something out. And in fact, when I first sent the manuscript to my agent, I didn't have any I didn't have any quotation marks, and no dialogue was designated as spoken. There were I never said, she said, he said, Ellie said. Matt said, I figured I'm not doing my job if you can't hear who it is, because every character uses different language and has a different cadence and has a different way of speaking, and that's so much how I understand my characters. And the other thing that comes into my work so deeply from my theater work, but I also think it's just who I am. I think that language is music. And I think every character has their own music and that everyone is singing their story. And so once I get the cadence and the song of a character, I can really trust that. I have the voice, and it helps me into the voice of the book. And that's all from the theater. And then my ability to revise really fast is from my theater training. Because when I teach playwriting, and I'll tell my students on the first day that, okay, here's a manuscript for a play, and it's 110 pages long. And by the time I'm ready to show this to anyone, I have written so many drafts of this play that it would go from the floor to this table. And you just revise and revise and revise with a play because it's so incredibly streamlined and every word has to be meaningful and carry a lot of weight and information and subtext. So that was really, really, all of that training was really useful for me. And I was very confident about revising, whereas I think a lot of folks who are writing their first novel who have never revised, haven't gone through that process, I just have, my heart goes out to them because I feel like, where did they figure out how to begin? How do they even approach this manuscript and begin to take it apart so they know what they want to add? I hope I've answered your question.
I think so.
Yes?
I have a question. So in pages 280 to 290, you have Alice kind of go out of character a lot, and she steals everybody's car, and she grabs some whiskey, and she grabs Henry, and she goes to the beach and gets drunk. And I don't understand how that is linked to the rest of the novel, and I was hoping you could explain that to me.
That's a great question, and it's so specific. This has to be the wearing student in the room.
Yes.
Awesome. I know that's really out of character for Alice, and one of the things I'm trying to express with that behavior and those mistakes, quote unquote, is what occurs when you're at such a pitch of emotion, and that it's possible at certain times in your life to not make good choices and not make good decisions, and to be running so hard from the pain you're feeling that you're going to grab whatever it is you think might help assuage that pain. And for me, I think that's what Alice is doing. Did you feel that it just was so untrue to the character that it threw you out of the book and you said, no way would Alice do that?
Somewhat, yes. And also I found some of the things that Henry was doing, like on, I believe it's 284, he has this opportunity where he sees that Alice has put down the bottle of whiskey on the sand, and he has the opportunity to pour it out, but he doesn't. And I found that kind of unrealistic, that if I were in that situation, I would definitely pour out the alcohol, because having Alice get drunk does not help anything. In fact, could kill her. If she doesn't have enough resistance to the alcohol, she could die from drinking a bottle of whiskey. So I didn't find Henry actions or Alice's actions very realistic, so it did kind of take me out of the book somewhat.
Yep. Well, I'm sorry that happened. You're the first person who's told me that, but I find that really, really interesting. And it's interesting how we all respond to a character doing something out of character and making big mistakes. And that needs to be set up really well by the writer so that you feel like, okay, I know she wouldn't have done this yesterday, but on the day of her father's funeral, I can understand why she would do this. So, interesting note to self that didn't work for you. Yes?
I just had a question. Did you ever entertain the idea of having Matt come back from the war?
I did. I did, but not much, because I knew that I had several choices. He could come back fine, he could come back hurt, or he could not come back. And one of the reasons I chose for him not to come back, even though I know how devastating that is for everyone, is that I felt we needed to bury a soldier. And I felt we all need to have the experience of burying a soldier, because this war is so hidden from view. And what these families and these soldiers are suffering is so hidden from view. When I started writing the book, it was still under the Bush administration, and we were not even allowed to see photographs of the coffins. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was just whitewashed and put away. And I thought, how are we going to wake up and start to protest or talk about this, or say, what the heck is going on? How could we be at war for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 11 years, if we don't really see what the costs are? So I made a very strong decision to bury a soldier and take us through the pain of that and take some time there, because I really wanted to honor this soldier and I wanted to honor all soldiers. Hi.
Hi. I thought that the connection between her seeing the wounded soldier and what war had done to him helped her make that adult split decision that when the senior told her he was leaving, she was able to go out of her own adolescent self-concern and say, I can't let him go without something. And I think the fact that you had the scene at the funeral with this young person in the background whom she was compelled to follow to the car, I thought that was extremely effective.
Thank you. Again, I think we so rarely see the damage that these young men and young women come home with. And some of that damage will last for a lifetime. And as many soldiers will tell you, while we might be able to heal the physical wounds, the wounds to the soul are much more difficult to heal and even to talk about, let alone begin to take care of. So that's why Trevor's in the book. And that's also why John enlists, that we have a character who enlists, so that we have this awareness that, oh my gosh, you've just gone through this incredible tragedy, and it just keeps going on. There will be more and more young men who act out of honor and self-sacrifice and a desire to serve all the best things in the world, and we send them to war. Yes?
I have another question, actually. I was wondering, did you ever, when you were writing the book, did you intend for there to be biblical references, or is it just that it's an urtext of this culture and you couldn't write a book without having biblical references?
What are you referring to? Angie and my soul lifts up, that moment? Are there others?
Well, there is, well, most obviously, there's, Alice becomes kind of an Adam figure. And where Matt is God, Matt becomes a God figure in a lot of the things. When she goes to a garden where her and Matt were, and they work together, that's one of the places where she finds paradise. So I would say, I would think that looks a lot like Eden. Also, there was several instances where Henry was helping Alice to be able to stand up and to live through what was happening to her, thereby putting Henry in an Eve role, which, because in Genesis 2:18, it says that God created Eve to be the sustainer for Adam, because animals were not enough. So, in that case, he became an Eve figure also at the place where Alice wants to shovel in the dirt herself. When there's no one else there. That is like in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and to the multitude as well, and he says that you should pray in your closet, and so that no one could see you, because at that time the Pharisees were they were saying how wonderful they were because they were praying so much, and look at me, I'm praying a lot. And so he was saying that no, you should pray by yourself where no one else can see you, and that you shouldn't pray on the street corner, you should pray in your closet. And that at that moment she's doing that, she is filling in Matt's grave by herself with no one else watching her, just as Jesus said. So
I think it's really interesting that you find biblical references in those places. That was not on my mind, other than the fact that I did feel like I was trying to create an Eden that Alice must lead, which is your classic coming of age, that we are in the cradle of childhood and must go through many trials in order to become adults. But where I was, what I was thinking about with that, for instance, that moment at the grave, is of course that, one of the things we watch Alice do is connect to her own sense of personal honor and responsibility, and that she's prepared to do things, whether there's anyone watching or whether there's anyone helping, that she is just taking on the mantle of taking action where necessary out of her own sense of morality. And again, this is part of Alice becoming who she is, and part of our understanding and our sense of hope that this kid's going to make it. We watch her make mistakes, and we also watch her do a few of these things, which I hope gives us a sense of hope about Alice continuing and being able to get through her life. Yes, yeah.
Did you find that when a lot of writers will say that their characters become almost real to them, and that sometimes they do things that you don't expect them to do? Did you find any of your characters kind of going in a direction that maybe you didn't think they would go into, but they kind of wound up there?
Those unexpected things are a joy, and I'm trying to think, were there unexpected actions? Probably. I think that whole scene in the lilac bushes and the whole scene with the alcohol was very unexpected for me, as it is for the reader. And the other real pleasure, the other surprise for me, were the characters who showed up that I didn't know were going to be in the book. And that includes Henry and Uncle Eddie. And I had no idea. And I didn't know Mrs. Minty was going to be in the book. I didn't know Mrs. Pantowski was going to be in the book. And that's just a gift. You sit down to write that day, and this amazing character comes into your head, or as I would say, walks on stage, and you get to know them. I saw another question somewhere. Perhaps. Yes.
Is there any chance it's going to become a movie?
I'm talking to someone about that. And it is going to become a musical. We have a commission from Playwrights Horizons in New York City, and I'm working with the composer Jenny Gearing, who I've written 2 projects with, and for the first time I'm working with a lyricist whose name is Adam Guan. And I've always done my own lyrics, but in this instance, I can't mess around with these characters' voices and turn them into poetry. I just hear them too strongly. So we expect, I think, to have our first workshop maybe around next June. Yeah, and cross your fingers for the movie. I have a little favor to ask. I asked my publisher if they would be kind enough to print me postcards that I could then ask my readers, would you consider taking one of these and sending a postcard to someone to recommend Alice Bliss? And if you would, I would love to give you one. And there's no pressure, of course. Don't feel that this is something you must do. But it would be much appreciated.
I can't even talk because the book is so emotional. I don't know if I start crying, so I don't even hear what I'm going to say. But I really felt, after I read this, that should be required reading for high school. I strongly feel that. I mean, is that an option?
It is my absolute largest dream that this book would be in the curriculum. And because I want people, because of Alice's strengths, because of the story of the war and the understanding of what those costs are, that 99% of us can live our lives as though this war is not happening, and 1% of our population is paying the price. And there's something really wrong with that. And that's, why I wrote the book. And right now, the Waring School has chosen it as their all-school read, and I'm going to visit the school next week to answer more questions from other wonderful students. And I'll also go to their Young Writers Conference in the spring. 2 teachers who I met, one at St. John's and one at Malden, are going to teach the book. We're just trying to get the word out about it. And Penguin has been wonderful. Their Department of Curriculum and Libraries really believes in this book. And there's something called First Year Experience for colleges, where the entire freshman class chooses and reads a book, and they're featuring Alice Bliss for that program. And that would also be, tremendously meaningful to me. So, and because in my own community I can do things like volunteer to come to Waring to talk to students, or go to Malden High School, or go to St. John's, there's nothing that's more meaningful to me. And it is showing up on a lot of reading lists. Apparently right now there are a lot of schools that don't have a budget for new books. And that's a bit of a problem. But one teacher found her way around that by teaching it in a senior elective. I guess those children will be asked to purchase their own books. Yes.
One thing, putting my journalist hat back
Yes.
on. Yeah. You said at the beginning that when you got that award, you really wanted to do something different, something special, and be a beginner. Do you feel like after all of this stuff has happened in the book and the musical and maybe even a movie and kids who are so connected to it, do you feel like you did get that gift that you shot for?
Oh, this book has given me so much, and the journey that Alice is on as she finds her way, from each group of people, from each book group I visit, from each library I visit, it's just remarkable to me. And the fact that several times a week someone is writing to me about the book, and that I am happy to go look at my email because it's often I'm hearing from someone, and that it does feel to me like there's a possibility that this could be a classic book that becomes part of our world and our curriculum. And how amazing is that? You just kind of take a chance and say, geez, I'd like to write a book, that had a little resonance, and it turns out to be, one of the best stories you've dealt with in your entire career. So a lot of that is luck and, of course, faith and just showing up over time. But yeah.
Talent.
Yes.
So now that you've written a book,
Right. What's your next one?
are you going to write a sequel? I mean, do you still like, do you like the novel, the writing process of the novel?
Writing a novel. It's so fun.
So are we expecting you're going to write another one at some point?
I'm going to finish my second one by the end of the year. It's, I have a big, messy draft right now. But that's part of the fun. And yes, I'll be delivering it to my agent by the end of the year, and then hopefully we'll sell it. And then I know what the next one is after that. So it's exciting.
So you're
I'm
diverting.
on my way. Yes,
You're
I'm diverted, but it's so interesting the way I keep sort of getting pulled back into the theater. And I was like, okay, but just for a couple of minutes, I'm going to finish this book. No, but it's lovely, and writing books is really fun. The especially fun thing is that plays are short. A full-length play is 100 pages, and opera libretto is 45 or 60 pages. And the book is hundreds of pages, so the good part lasts longer. The part when, there's all the doubt and all the rewriting, but the fun part where you're just following the story and having a great time, just plain lasts longer. So the pleasure is extended. And then, I have to say, readers are absolutely fantastic to deal with. Audiences are also wonderful, but they sit down for 2 hours and then they go home. And for an audience, of an off-Broadway show, if you have 30 performances and it seats 100, you've reached 3,000 people. Or if you've been a 400-seat theater and you get 30 performances, you can do the math and it's a few more people. But it's not a lot of people. And it seems to me that a book can reach lots more people. And then the relationship between the reader, who spends hours and hours privately with your character, is very different than the relationship we have collectively in the theater. Both of them are really valuable, and I love both of them, but it's just fun for me to have that different relationship with my audience.
Talk just a little bit about what authors you like to read. What might have inspired you when writing down, growing up, that you like to read?
Oh gosh, I was a big reader. I thought that the library was, the best place in town. And I set out to read every book that our little library had about horses. And then my mom took me to the city library, which took up an entire block. And we went in, and there I was in the children's section, and they had so many books about horses. And I wasn't overwhelmed. I thought, yay, it's never going to run out. And my mom was a big reader. In fact, she loved Pasternak so much that she's in her 40s studied Russian for a little while so that she could read some of his poetry in Russian, and revered the written word. And certainly that's had a huge impact on me. The writers I love, love, love are Virginia Woolf, Thornton Wilder. I think Thornton Wilder, I was not really taught Thornton Wilder because I think people thought he was a fuddy-duddy. And I think Our Town is one of the genius works of our era, and his novels are unbelievable. You all know Bridget of San Luis Rey, but you probably haven't read his novel called The Eighth Day, and it's just gorgeous. I'm also reading a lot of contemporary work right now. The best book of the summer for me was Ben Fountain's book, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, about an Iraq soldier. It's just genius book. I love Jane Gardam, the British author, and her book Old Filth is one of my favorites. So I could natter on a long time about this because I love them so much. But there's just, and I've been influenced, I think, a lot by, I have to say, I've been influenced a lot by the Episcopal Prayer Book. And its music and its language, and I've been influenced a lot by Virginia Woolf and her bravery with point of view, and certainly, you know, Thornton. I'm sure Thornton Wilder is just in my mind all the time as I write.
Can you read novels while you're writing one?
Yes, I can't stop reading actually, but there are times when I need to maybe shift my focus. I've even enjoyed, have not been a mystery reader before, and suddenly I'm like, ooh, these are really fun and diverting. Right. Marilyn Robinson, her book Home. There's so much wonderful work out there. Thank you all. Does anyone need a book? Need a book signed? Would anyone? And also I have brought today, I'm trying to get more organized. If you would like to know what's happening with Alice Bliss, and in fact, tomorrow there's some really, really good Alice Bliss news coming out that I can't share with you yet, but if you go on my Facebook tomorrow afternoon, it'll be splashed all over the place. I'd love to be in touch and send you information about what's happening or when the next book is coming out. And I promise if you give me your address not to abuse it. So if anybody would like to...
That sounds pretty mysterious.
Very good news.
Before we break up, I would like to raffle off a copy of your book.
Great.
The Friends buy a book. We'd like to raffle it off. So only participate if you actually want a copy of the book. So the raffle is going to go based on your birthday, not your year, but your birth date. Your birthday. So it's, can you tell us?
Yes, it's the 17th of September.
Oh,
Okay.
oh my God.
That's
That's
our
my birthday.
might want to get it on That was only a couple days ago. Wow.
No, it's coming.
It's coming out. We'll see. Okay. I'll see where I am at.
Laura's going to hang out with us for a little while and sign books for people, and we want to thank you all for coming. This is a program that was sponsored by the Friends of the Library, so if you like programs like these and you want to join us, we have flyers upstairs. We'll also be at the Apple Festival on Saturday. We'll be there all day, so come by and say hi to us, and you can join us there and join our program. And
you're going to be speaking on.
Oh yes, Nancy and I. In October, my name's Danielle and Nancy. We will be speaking on October 4th, is it? And we're going to be talking about writing a novel in 1 month and some of our experiences with fiction writing. So
Nano Remo, tell them the story.
Yeah, we got flyers here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we should add they've both written a novel in one
that's
month.
Wow.